Well, it's my favourite day of the week, the day I get to work on my rusty old partially sunken tub. In today's video, we have a look inside these rusty old rudders and find out what's lurking beneath. But first, I need to sort out a workbench. So here we have it, another wet day. In fact, it's not stopped raining, it's been raining continuously. That's it, get the focus on the talon. It's been raining continuously since the last video, and we've got floods everywhere. It's wet through, it's difficult to get motivated, particularly because we don't have any steel. I know we have the shelter here, but I've no steel. So I've got to scratch around and find some jobs because I don't want to start anything too new until we finish this, because it just won't get finished. So let's get unlocked. Hope you can see me through the rain. It's completely wet through in here. So the board covered in water, steel's covered in water. These are the deck drains that are dripping to here. There's water all over the floor. There's water on the side, in the screwdrivers. I think the first thing to do is to really get ourselves organised, is just to have a bit of a tidy up in here. What I would say though is, I had this comment a couple of times, people saying, oh, too much talking and not enough progress. So I have to say, you get these videos weekly, and every week you see the progress that we've made during the previous week. And some weeks we make a lot of progress, and on other weeks we don't make so much progress. So you get to see what actually happens. Let's see how much progress we get this week. It's going to be a challenge because I've got to do a couple of days work. I've got to get some money back in the coffers, but we will do our best. Right, that heater, drying bench. Let's get everything sorted out in here. Right, part way through getting cleaned up, but I think we've got a break in the rain. Although I think the time's getting on, I'm going to take the opportunity while it's not raining to see if I can cut that steel. Fingers crossed. I need to measure the size I need first. We can say roughly same width as this, about 80, 82. Now, what about the length? 2440 it is. Do we need to cut it that way, or will it all go in? 2440. It'll go in. So we may as well just have one piece. So 820 millimeters then in engineering speak, 82 centimeters for the rest of us. Okay, new grinder. That's the other one. Needs to scare me a bit because the shaft, whatever you call it, the bearing had gone on it. It used to wobble all over the place. 82. I know we've got a coil before you start moaning. It's there. It could get hot, but it doesn't. Right. I wish it was that piece. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so the table's in, and oops, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to red oxide this, because we do get a lot of drips in here. A bare table would be good for welding and things, because then you don't need a clamp, but I'm going to red oxide it, and if we are working on steel, we could always just sand that bit off for the time being, but I don't want to come back and find great big rotten areas. Let's just abrade this a little bit with a flat wheel first. Oh! Right, there we go for now. Red oxide. It's a rough job. It's meant to be a rough job because we get drips in here, and I don't want loads of rust all over the surface. You can probably see down here there's already water that's fallen onto the red oxide. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm going to let that dry. We'll be back when it's dry. Okay, so it's 3 days later. And why 3 days? Because sadly I still have to go to work. So I've been at work for a couple of days trying to earn some money to pay for this project. Anyway, 3 days later, we're back. It's a good job we put the red oxide on the steel. This is why. Let's give you an example of exactly how much water has been getting in here. And it's all at this end. And something's floating in there. Looks like we've got a paddling pool up there. Just this one corner. So I'm just going to give that a little push if I can. What do you reckon? Can I get it? While that's warming up, I've got a repair job to do. The hinges seem to have come off the door, so let's just put some bigger hinges on there. Well, bigger screws. There we are, door back on. Good job. So while we're waiting for the steel, which hopefully is coming either later on this afternoon or tomorrow, I need to get on with another job. So I've decided to bring these rudders in that we've taken off and have a look at them, because I believe we're going to have to either repair them or remake them. So under here, can you see that hole? I believe there was a drain plug there. There seems to be a drain plug on the other one, but these are pretty badly corroded. And if you look along here, you can see we're corroded, and there's holes there that'll be going through to the inside. Bit of corrosion on the shaft. I'm hoping that's not too bad, because I want to try and salvage these. And you can probably see here, you can see very well, there's a drain plug on there, and we've got the similar kind of pitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind the welds off, get inside them, inspect them, have a look. I've got a funny feeling we're going to have to refabricate these. Fingers crossed. Well, there you have it. Actually not as bad as I thought they were going to be. So a lot of this steel looks quite good on the inside, it's just pitted on the outside. This bottom has gone, so that would have had to be replaced. And you can see some of the edges here where it's pitted and corroded. Bit of grot inside. You can see there's been a water level though, so it's probably filled up to there with water, and the air will have kept the rest of the water out. So it has let water in, but it's fared fairly well. As that was held on just by a couple of welds there. How did they weld that then? Because it's welded at the bottom too. They must have welded that and then folded it down. That's probably what they did, because there's no welds on this side, no welds here, so I get the impression they put the steel on here, welded it here, welded it there, and then bent it along this profile to get that curve. Well, that's what we're going to be trying. So it's the next day, and the rain seems to have let up a little bit for now. There's some bad news though. I had an email today, this morning, from the fabricator telling me that the steel's not going to come till Monday now. And given that it's Thursday today and it was supposed to turn up yesterday or the day before, I don't think that's very good service. I'm not going to name and shame. I'll show you the email. I won't name and shame, but I think that's rubbish service. So I'm held up now with the steel to continue rebuilding the stern of this boat. But we can try and get on a little bit with this rudder. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a decision about whether we repair it or whether we refabricate it. Refabricating sounds like a lot of fun. So looking at this rudder then, we've just took the one apart. On the bottom of this rudder, this bottom section is quite corroded and is actually quite thin. You can see here that hole that's corroded. There was actually a drain plug on there, and that seemed to have corroded off completely. There's a water level here, and we've banged off a fair amount of corrosion. I don't think it's bit in that deep, but it has had some corrosion. So first of all, that would want replacing if we were repairing these. But secondly, if we come along the edge, it's got quite thin and corroded here, and you can see the hole. So this would need some kind of a repair, and we could possibly pad weld that up. We could possibly weld a strip in here. And then there's also this shaft, which I've gnarled in the taking it off process. So that's going to need a repair, and that can be a weld in there. So even though I think these might be repairable, this is the thing that really tips the balance. I cut all this out because I believe this was welded all the way down. It turned out it was only welded here. It was impossible to see because it wouldn't peel up. Because I've cut that out, that means I'd probably have to replace this side anyway. And if I'm replacing that side and I'm repairing these holes, and I want to try and repair this nicely and get to the back of here and clean it up, and we need to replace this, we may as well refabricate it. For two main reasons. One, I think it would be better to have a nice new rudder. But secondly, I think it'll be a lot of fun. A new skill to learn. You know, I'm not a fabricator, but let's see how a novice like me can get on. Okay, first job is to remove this on this shaft off so I can do a repair. We can clean all this up nicely. Before I do that though, the bolt hole orientation is important. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little line on here. I'm going to mark down here. I'm either going to centre punch it, let's see how good my centre punch is, or we'll grind a little groove on that. Now, one or two of our critics in the comments mentioned the use of scarf joints in steel, as you can see on here. In fact, we put scarf joints on all the steel that was being extended. And there was a little bit of sarcasm saying that you don't use scarves on steel, and that's not quite true. It's a little bit of a different technique. Scarves used on wood are there for strength. Scarves on steel don't add any extra strength. But what they do is they make it easier to line up the new piece of steel with the old piece of steel. Let me try and explain. So let's just assume these are steel. With steel, if you butt a joint and you weld it, it's as strong as the steel. But the problem with the butt joint is you've got to get this movement and this movement correct. It's got to be lined up. Now, there are ways of doing that. You know, you can clamp steel to the top, those kind of techniques. But another technique is to scarf it, because if you scarf it, you have 2 points of contact in 2 different planes. So you scarf it that way. You've got contact there and contact there, which keeps it straight with the existing piece of wood. But you also have contact there and there, which keeps it straight sideways as well. So the idea behind a scarf in steel is just for alignment. There are other ways of doing it, and I'm sure people who work with steel all the time might have other techniques, but it is a valid technique. I'm no expert, but I found that out before we did it by actually reading. So just for all the critics out there, scarves are used on steel occasionally, but for the reason of alignment, not for the reason of strength. Anyway, have a look at my shaft. So it's just been cleaned up. There's a few defects on here that we've put in. A bit of grinder abuse when we were trying to cut it out. So I'll need to just pop some welds on that. The idea is we'll clean this up. We'll just repair some of these gashes with a little bit of weld. Then what we'll probably do is grit blast this. We might try the hydroblasting on it. We'll grit blast this to get a nice key, and then we'll get some paint on it. And that, of course, will be used for the assembly of the new rudder. Right, so if you don't want rusty rings on your shaft, you need to grease it up. ACF 50. This is a lubricant, but it's also fantastic corrosion resistance. So I'm just going to do that because it's quite wet in here, and no doubt when I come back to this there'll have been rainwater all over the place. Right, there's my greasy shaft. Corrosion protected. Right then, with a bit of luck, the steel should be here on Monday, but I'm not holding my breath. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up, and once you've given us a thumbs up, if you're using a mobile device, hit that hype button. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and until the next video, thanks to each and every one of you for watching. Bye for now.